Hello. Uh, I'd like to reiterate some of the comments made. Really appreciate you guys coming out tonight and joining us in this conversation. My name is Mohammed Mohammed. I'm the Executive Director of the West Bank Community Coalition. And on behalf of our whole organization, thank you for coming out to this event. Thank you for participating. And I would also mention we've got some sign-in sheets at the front. If you haven't had a chance, please make sure to sign in, put your email or your phone number. However we can keep you updated. We want to make sure that we're able to pass down information. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction. I'm not sure how many people know about the CVE or on what level people are familiar with the program. So just a brief introduction. In 2014, the U.S. Department of Justice announced a new anti-terrorism initiative, the Countering Violent Extremism, or CVE. In Minneapolis, it was called Building Community Resilience. Now, according to the plan documents that are available on the DOJ's website, this program was shaped by feedback from local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, schools, professors, non-governmental organizations, and social service providers. Now, this framework that the CVE identifies tries to identify the root causes of radicalization in our community as disaffected youth, deep disconnects between youth and religious leaders, internal identity crisis, community isolation, and lack of opportunity. And it calls for expanded youth programming and mentoring opportunities and increased engagement between religious leaders and youth. Now, many in the community have, however, expressed grave concerns about this program. Just recently, the Brennan Center for Justice at New York University School of Law has pointed out that this type of programming is not new. It has existed for some time with unconvincing results. So while it claims to root out all violent extremism, this program only focuses on Muslims, stigmatizing us as a suspect community. So we are here tonight to bring both points of view together so that Cedar Riverside residents and the larger community have an opportunity to make informed opinions and decisions regarding this program. So with that, I'll give the microphone back to our moderators and we'll move forward, and I look forward to the panel discussing.
So we're just going to move forward to the questions for the panel. The first question would be, what do you guys know about the CVE and what does it stand for? So that's open to anyone to answer.
Repeat the question.
The question is, okay, sorry. The question was, what do you know about the CVE and what does it stand for?
Which is called the community resilience. It is for two perspectives. Number one, to work with the young youth and indicate them and say that that's bad, that's good, that's holy. That's one thing. And the other thing is to work with the government and say that, how can we help you in order to help to make our children safe? I don't afraid to say that. We either step back and say that and let the government do whatever they want with the kids, or we go to the government and say that, how can we work with you? How can we help you in order to save those kids? That's what we do. So far, what we succeeded in, quite amount of money for the communities, the Somali communities. It is I'm not sure of it now, I didn't get, that date, but it's about $500,000? No, it's more than that, but quite, and that money will be given to the communities who are legible and work hard and can help the kids.
Offer a critique of this program. One comment that I think we should always remember. We should always remember that anytime that there's violence that happens in the world, in communities, whether it's terrorism, whether it's systemic, whether it's personal, anytime that organizations or societies go after trying to stop that, right, so countering violence, there's always a danger that societies, and this is especially true with state power, is there's always a possibility that you create more violence in your communities than actually the violence that you're trying to stop. So this is always a danger. And one of the things that we always have to be really thinking about is, yes, there is terrorism and violence in the world. And nobody in this room, I imagine, would support violence against innocent people. But what happens is that a lot of fear is generated out of that. And then solving that, or addressing that, what can happen sometimes is that organizations or entities or programs are created that unfortunately stigmatize, they create more violence, distrust with communities than the very thing you're going after. So we always have to keep in mind, whatever programs, whatever they're called, CVE or building, whatever, we always have to be resilient to think about the moral values and the dignity of communities, not just being overwhelmed with fear that then blinds us when we go stand behind the strongest person in the room, right? Because that kind of fear can silence injustice. So I want to raise that just as a concern, something we should always be thinking about, is the thing that we're going after, even if we all agree that that's a problem, violent terrorism. We don't want to be reproducing new forms of violence against communities that are innocent and that we live in. So I want to say that just as a worry that I have. Now the other thing that I have is critique about the CVE, not in terms of the programs per se, but in terms of the language that the CVE is using. So if you can read all of the discourse of the CVE program online. It's publicly available. What the Countering Violent Extremism program argues is that it's going after what it calls, quote, ideologically driven violence. So it's not a program to counter violence. It's a program to counter violent extremism. In other words, there's an assumed ideology that it's trying to target and undermine, right? So we wouldn't even be meeting here. It's just let's talk about stopping violence. Everybody would be. The issue is about the language of ideologically driven violence. And here's my concern. My concern is that the way in which the CVE program is, the discourse that it's using, is that it's talking about ideology. And it has a very problematic way of thinking about the relationship between ideologies and violence. In reality, all of us here have ideologies. We all think about the world in certain ways to try and change it, to make it better, right? We all have ideologies. Ideologies themselves don't cause violence. Now, some ideologies can be better or worse than others, right? They can be bad, etc. But ideologies themselves don't create violence. Teaching at MCTC for 13 years, I have students talk to me about anarchy as an ideology. I hear ideologies about white supremacy. I hear ideologies about capitalism, which is clearly a very violent ideology in the world. I hear ideologies about patriotism and nationalism and black consciousness. All of these ideologies are expressed by students. Now, I don't think about those students expressing those ideas as they're sitting there on the precipice of committing violence. Because a lot of times what happens is people talk about those ideologies and they express them, we debate them. But the issue about violence is not the ideology. It's related to many factors like the social and economic conditions in which people live. The amount of unequal power that's distributed, perhaps sometimes related to mental illness. So we should never think about somebody holding an ideology as if in some way that ideology causes somebody to do violence. The problem with the CVE is that it wants us to divert our attention to the ideology,
the community or coming towards the community.
rather than focusing on the social and economic conditions in which people are living. And the Somali Muslim communities in Minnesota are increasingly victims of racism, of Islamophobia, of poverty, of inequality. So those are the issues that we need to empower youth to address. My worry is that by focusing on the ideology and stigmatizing people for expressing certain ideas, that we divert our attention away from dealing with the real issues that every community needs powerful youth communities to confront, and that is stopping racism and Islamophobia. I don't see it countering violent extremism about Islamophobia. I don't hear countering violent extremism about white supremacy. I don't see it countering violent extremism about police officers that are violent against black lives. I don't see that. So that's my worry about the countering violent extremism program. It separates the ideology and claims that somehow this ideology itself is violent. And anybody who uses that word or says that phrase or looks that way, if they're in some way associated with that ideology, now they're seen as a potential terrorist or a violent person. And that's my concern. The issue is about the power of Somali youth and communities and African American youth in all of our communities. It's not about the ideology itself. We need to focus on the conditions in which building a safe and blessed community for everybody, and not focusing on the ideology. That's my concern about CVE.
Why aren't the programs like CVE for any other groups around the country that have been affected by violence? Why aren't they being generalized like we are?
I think most of you all understand this already. I was thinking, what was the name of the Somali credit union? I want to say for Yale's. Remember you all had what do you call it? The credit unions, when you're giving money, sending money to Somali, what is it called? Hawala. But these facts, remember when they shut down the Hawala, right? And what that was about was scapegoating the Somali community. Let me speak honestly here. That's a good question, man. It's because they want to scapegoat your community, right? They're trying to do two things at the same time. On one hand, they're saying, they're smiling at you, say, oh, we're coming to help you. On the other hand, they're disparaging your community, right? They know what they're doing. And they're doing it to use you as a scapegoat because they want to keep the anti-Muslim fever going, right? They want that going because they want to be able to talk to the rest of the U.S. population who doesn't read anything. And you've been here a while to recognize that, right? The U.S., I'll just keep it real, the U.S. population is pretty ignorant about world affairs, right? They're pretty ignorant about where anything is, geography, and anything else. They don't know where Somalia is. Most of them don't. And they think that's something smart. They think it's something to brag about, where it really isn't. And so the government takes advantage of this ignorance. And so while they're saying they're opposed to Islamophobia, they drum it up, right? And you aren't stupid. You know that they want to then turn around and blame your community. Well, when kids get radicalized. Nobody's stupid. The U.S. bombs Iraq and Afghanistan. Those are what? Muslim countries, right? If you don't know any better, you just stand back as an outsider looking in. It appears that the U.S. is what? Anti-Muslim. They're killing Muslims, right? They bombed Pakistan, right? They bombed Yemen. These are Muslim countries. Somalia, they went in and pretty much destroyed it, right? They used Ethiopia and Kenya as satellites to come in, and every time Somalia gets on its feet, they undermine it, right? So what's going on? The reason they did this is they want to use this community to use it to scapegoat, to say to other Americans, see, we do have a problem with Muslims, right? And of course, it is right that you respond to it. The young people who've been attracted to ISIS, on some level it makes sense. because they're saying we want to defend the Muslim community in the world. It makes sense. And so what so they're the ones who are being violent. And the young people responding to their violence. So that's why they're doing it. So they want to turn around and say, oh, it's the Muslim community that's being violent. And so they want to use your community so they can point. It's why some of the crazies are running around, because they're getting the signal. That's why some of the crazies are running around doing things to Muslim people. Because the government is kind of giving them what we call dog whistles. They're saying it's okay. They really are saying it's okay. By aiming at your community, they're saying this is real. Like the professor said, this ain't real. Y'all know this is not real. And you have to tell them. When the government comes into your neighborhood saying, we got a program, you know what you have to say to them? No, thank you. You took care of yourself before, right? You know, one of the beauties of my African brothers and sisters is you all still have community, right? You still have customs, right? You still have principles. You don't live by them.
Just a follow-up question answered by Professor Matthews. I was wondering, do you feel that the purpose of CVE or the placement of CVE is due to ideologies by certain individuals or the community of Cedar in general?
You know, CVE is a new word for something that's been going on for a long time in this community, right? So it's not just 2014. It's been going on for a long time.
Why CVE?
I moved here in 2002, and I started working with Somali communities in 2007. People have been telling me for a long time that there were informants and FBI agents in the mosques, in the communities already. This was in 2007, certainly, and I was hearing this long before that as well. So CVE is in many ways just kind of a new version of some, I think, very problematic, highly militarized efforts that are going on in the community for a long time. Which is why it's very naive, I think, to say that the CVE program will now start to work with trusting relationships with the communities when you've had, for a decade or more, highly militarized investigations and FBI work going on behind the scenes, which is, I think, in my view, have done real damage to the Somali communities, and Muslim communities, and Black communities here in the Twin Cities. So it's not an easy thing.
Magaygo Julia Fiore. I'm delighted to be here today. I welcome the dialogue that the youth have initiated today. We're talking about this funding. I swear to God, close to 9 months or maybe 8 months, close to a year, we've been advocating. This program has two folds. One has controversial. Our youth are being imprisoned. There are issues involved. But the other side of it is, how do we empower our community? How do we get funding from our youth? How do we get what the Somali community, especially youth, have the right to get? And this is the funds that we're talking about that just been allocated. Some people say about it is $1 million, and we want more than that. What we're trying to say is, if this money has to do with CVE, why would you, I mean, you're against the CVE, why would you want to apply something that you are against to begin with? I mean, talking about ideology, we do not condone the ideology of terrorism, extremism, or radicalization. All Somalis are against that. We don't want to be branded to be radicalized or something. I am the first one who would be on the streets fighting against this. The two choices, two options. Whether you can yell and talk about CVE or building community resilience from outside, or whether you can be on the table with the authorities, with the U.S. Attorney's Office, with the Commissioner's Office, with the police officers, with the Sheriff's Office, and tell them, hey, this is my community. This is wrong. This is what we need. We need funding. This is what our community is lacking. These kids are innocent. This is what we need. Who better to say if I'm not outside of this conversation? I need to be part of this conversation, and we want you to be an advocate or voice for your community. I'm not afraid of the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'm not a criminal. So I said, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen and I have every right to defend my community and tell the authority what our community needs. But this has a long run, and we need such dialogue so we can come into some kind of a resolution of the betterment of our community.
I feel that I strongly need to respond to these comments, since I was responsible for a chunk of the money that has appeared as part of that, and I am joining with the groups, with the sets of people, my colleagues who want to raise this up to $1 million. I just agree with everything that was just said here. We need to take control of the money. We need to use it for programs, like the idea of training and paying, not asking people to just be volunteers, but being able to pay people to be trained, young Somalis to be trained as mediators, so that the mediators are not coming from the outside. I'm paying a lot of attention to the new legislation that is being drafted, and we're certainly going to get rid of any language like countering violent extremism and get into the whole concept of building community resilience and making sure that it's under the control of the community. When I spoke in the legislature for the source of funding, I specifically said this was not enforcement, this was not looking for informants, this was specifically to be into the hands of the community, to be directed in the way the community wants to use it. And I don't think you gain anything by refusing it. I said because it comes from the government, it's bad. What you've got to do is stand up and take it over and show the government that you can control it and you can use it in the way that you think is good for the community. And I think the money is pretty much in the hands of this Youth Prize group, which has funded UMA and some other things. And I think what?
I don't know. We don't know. They haven't heard.
Well, that will be. We hope that. But I think we. But I think the issue that we need is that it's our money, your money, if that's what you want to say, and we have to use it the way we want. But if we walk away from it, then it will be used in the ways that we've spoken about, used against to stigmatize the society and against the people that we really wanted to help. So I'm strongly opposed any suggestions that we walk away from it. I want to take it and take control of it. I want you to take it and take control of it and use it the way you think it should be used.
Let me preface my remark by saying, listen, I'm not a Somali. I'm not Muslim or Christian. I'm from, and I'm an African-American descendant of slaves, right? And so we've been here a few hundred years, and what I do have is I have some history with the people we're talking about, right? And so my question to them is, to you is, can a leopard change its spots? A zebra and stripes? No, they can't. Even if they told you they could. So we've had experience with this. This is nothing new. Years ago, a program in the early 90s, because we had drugs that were ravaging our community when you all first got here, and they instituted a weed and seed program. And they came to us just like they come to you now, and they said, hey, we've got lots of money, we've got jobs for you, and all we need for you to do is we want to weed out the community from all the drugs and what have you, right? And then we're going to see, what we're going to do is we want you to tell us who the drug dealers are, who all the bad people are, and then we're going to turn give you money, we're going to give you jobs and what have you. I don't tell you how that wound up. What that wound up happening in the 90s, they began to institute what you see, these 3 strike laws, mandatory minimums, because our community agreed. We go, yeah, we want to deal with the drugs, and we should deal with the drugs. But there's a way we know how to deal with it that the law enforcement isn't interested in. Because on some level, and I'm not sounding cynical when I say this, they don't have any problem just locking up a bunch of folks who look like me. They've shown that they don't have that problem. And so they begin to lock us up left and right and the seeding part with a few jobs that people got. But in the meantime, we agreed on some level. They sat in the community rooms like this. And we kind of sat there and agreed to give up our democratic rights because part of the contract said that they could go to certain blocks in our neighborhood and just lock everybody up they saw. I'm not exaggerating. And this is what they did. But our people. So is the man in here? Is that what's going on? I know he don't want to hear what I got to say, because I'm going to tell the truth. And so I disagree with, is it on? I disagree a little bit with my friend on the end. And again, I preface it by saying you ought to make decisions. Yes. I think there's a third option, and that is that we can do it for ourselves. They try to tell you they can come in and work in the system, and that's how you change it. Anybody who's a student of history knows that no system has ever been changed from within. Right? It's always been changed from without. And so we have the U.S. Attorney, Andy Lugar, saying he's your friend. But at the same time, he's locking up Somali young people while he's saying that I'm your friend. He's locking people up. And now we're supposed to believe that with the same hand, he's going to lift me up. That's not how it works in our community. He doesn't do both. He locks us up. He doesn't lock up people. He doesn't lock up the police when they shoot us down and beat us up. That's not what happens. But yet this same guy is going to sit before you and he's locking up your kids. Forgive me if I get excited about it, because it pisses me off. Because what they're doing to your kids is wrong. They don't do it to the European American kids, right? They have very little evidence, but they're putting those kids in solitary confinement. And they're going to sit in front of you and act like they're dignified, respectful people. And you're supposed to believe they got something good to give you. It's not real. Now, if you want to accept the money, you got that right. But understand what it comes with. That what she said earlier isn't true. That when they offer this money, law enforcement, and their job, the police and the U.S. Attorney's job is law enforcement, right? And so they never stop being law enforcement, which is why when they come to your meetings, they don't take their guns off. You know, they never stop being, there's no lie here, they never stop being law enforcement. And so part of this does include law enforcement, and a part of law enforcement is what she said, informants and that kind of, it does come with them. That's absolutely true. That's what came with the weed and seed, and I'm telling you, do what you want, but our experience is that the same hand does not feed and cut at the same time. It just doesn't work like that, right? They don't punish and feed with the same hand, all right? And that's a hand I don't want to have nothing to do with. So that's one of the things that...
Yeah, that was see.
Just because this guy failed in being able to use the money properly for
Why
his
did you
What are you talking about? Money? What are you talking about? I got no money. What is she talking about? She doesn't know me.
You can use it the way you want. It is not, it's actually not even in Andy Lugar's hands. It's a state appropriation. Andy Lugar is a federal person. The money, we want you to be able to use this in your community, to do things like the professor has suggested, to make sure that more of our students more of our kids get to go to college, more of our kids get a good education, and so forth. You know, the language that will go into the next bill will be more carefully crafted. It will not have any reference to terrorism. I'm proud to have helped get that appropriation, and you have to make it work correctly. And if you think it's being abused and it's not working correctly, you have to come to me and the people who have worked for this, and we will raise the kind of fuss that we were elected to raise. And we will scream about what we meant it to do and what we wanted to do and how we wanted helping you in a way that you, the community, that it's not being pushed on you from on top and you're being told how to use it. It will not do anything with informants. It will not do anything with enforcement. And I have a very proud legislative record. I have voted in a minority of three, sometimes two, three, four, sometimes two, against every single bill that was a ferocious law enforcement bill. That was, and there's no legislator more than me that has voted more against the excesses of law enforcement. And that's on the record, and you can see it. I voted against every mandatory maximum bill. I've consistently supported the rights of people who were being abused by the law. And I will stand away from no one to say that they have a better record than me on that subject.
So enough is enough. We can't use our kids in vain like that. This is getting out of hand. And if the feds, this is the United States federal grounds. We live in America. So these feds, these so-called feds, wanted to be in partnership and relations with us since back in the,
I don't know what that means. I don't know how that is. And if you think I'm lying, go to C-SPAN tonight and Google Minneapolis CVE project, and you'll see a Minneapolis public school official saying they would like to monitor Somali kids. Now, I'm going to make a quick statement because I'm one of the people that invited to be here just to make some points of clarification. First of all, my name is Jaylani Hussain. I'm the Executive Director for the CARE, Council of American Islamic Relations, CARE, Minnesota. I'm here today because of many reasons, but I want to just identify a few things. I'm glad all of you showed up here and you're here. The topic we're talking about is the #1 story about our community. It is the #1 issue that anyone cares about our community. If there's a reporter who comes from anywhere, this is the question that they want to ask about. The reality is, our community is beyond this issue. There are many other things that we're working on, but the reality is this is the issue that keeps coming back over and over and over again. And so, in 2014, I want to give you quick facts. These are not opinions, facts. September 11th, 2014, Department of Homeland Security announced a project called CVE, Countering Violence Extremism Pilot Program. CVE existed long before that. Pilot program, Minneapolis, Boston, and Los Angeles. These were efforts to create outreach programs within the community. When that happened, we tried to get involved. CARE and many other people tried to identify why are we being targeted, what is the program. All of the major important organizations were shut out. What we have been informed after all of these discussions happened is we have a program for you. Here's what it looks like. This exact program, we're talking about the funding we're talking about today, the way it's being organized, all of it is actually a model that has failed miserably in the UK called the PREVENT program. The PREVENT program did the exact same thing. Millions of dollars were spent to do outreach and social services, and 3 things happened. Number 1, the community lost trust with law enforcement. Law enforcement trust lost. The community were divided, and at the end of the day, nobody was working on the issue. So guess what happened? The issue actually became worse. There are more people leaving to join terrorist organizations today in the UK than the program started. What did the program do? It didn't just start with social services. It did the second thing, which is it asked teachers and social workers to become police and to identify who is being radicalized. Another fact, experts, these are not Muslims, experts who have looked at this issue of radicalization have identified and said, there is no clear pattern. We don't know who will be radicalized. Experts are saying this, which means it's a very complex issue. In Minnesota, it has been an issue that has been a concern for all of us, and that's why we're all here. Every single member of our Muslim community in Minnesota, including the Somali community, we care deeply about our youth. One youth being lost is one too many. And so this is an important issue to all of us. But the reality is that when these efforts are they did not look at what was actually happening in the Twin Cities. All of you know the Al-Shabaab story. How many kids left in Al-Shabaab? What they don't tell you, and nobody's reporting about it, nobody's talking about it, is what the community continuously does to stop kids. How many kids have went to Al-Shabaab recently? None. Why? Because this community that is also being blamed for many things stepped up. Now, Number one, CVE is a Department of Homeland Security initiative, whether the foundations and the state wants to be involved and all, CVE is still a Department of Homeland Security initiative, right? And so at CARE Minnesota, we've been working with the Muslim community in Minnesota, we've been working with the Imam community, and I want to report to you something that you don't hear again. 50 Minnesota Muslim organizations signed on a statement in May saying we're starting an effort to build bridges, to talk about how we can collaborate and strengthen our community to address this specific issue. However, the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Attorney's Office, doesn't care about the 50 organizations, doesn't care about those, because that's not part of because we criticize some elements of how the program is set up, we're no longer on the table. But it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's our move, and we continue. And I'll just report back to the imams. I sat, and Ayan is there, there are many people. The imams from different mosques sat in one area, in one table, discussing how do we support our youth, with or without money, because these youth are our youth. Whether we have money or not, it's our youth. It affects us more than anybody else. And they said we're doing this and we're doing that, from adding more to the curriculum in the Duxies, adding more things, security in some centers, doing more training, more outreach to youth. Even that they recognized that was not, we were sitting at the table. And that is how a community responds to an issue. On the other side is the issue when CVE now where it is today. Where is it CVE today? It is now being launched from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And now there's a pool of money that's available. A pool of money that's available to help our community. Sounds really good. The reality is our community has been struggling. If you look at the achievement gap, education achievement gap, the African Americans in Minnesota, especially the Somalis, are not doing well. We're not doing well. They're not educating us. Now they want to obviously surveil us also. Second thing, economics. We have the worst achievement in that. Health disparities. We have all these disparities. Our community should have been supported from many formats. And with respect to, as Phyllis mentioned, Phyllis has been a hardworking a representative in this area. But Phyllis, the problems didn't start with 17 kids leaving. We have bigger issues that require more money and more attention. But the reality is, just as I mentioned, I started off, the number one story that people care about is those young missing men. They forget the ones who are here. They forget the community that's here. They forget the 40 plus homicides in the Twin Cities that are unsolved actual crime that's happening in the Twin Cities. So, what is our community? How do we view CVE? We want funds for our community, but not with the label that we are terrorists. That is the label. We need funds for many things. And I can guarantee you, and I spoke to Wookie at Youth Prize, nobody knows how to stop radicalization. No one can tell you here today, if you do this and this and that, you'll stop. The experts don't know. But what we do know is if you have a strong community and strong families, you can overcome many challenges. And you can't do that with a program that actually divides a community, creates fear and tension into our community.
I respect the elders that are sitting here, and I respect everybody that's here right now. But we have a mom that's sitting over there that's trying to say something, and there's other people who are sitting here trying to get something done. But at the same time, all the things that have been arrested at this point were all people that the youth that are sitting right here knew. We all know them, we speak to them daily. But sitting here like arguing about funds and all that, and the elders speaking more than the youth, but at the same time, the elders are not the ones who's facing this issue. We are. So can we talk for ourselves and not have someone else speak for us? Woo.
I just wanted to say, the CVE is stigmatizing and labeling us as the only threat, and everything is happening behind closed doors. If you guys are here and helping us, how come you guys are not addressing the issue? And how come you guys are not, like, explaining the fact that you guys work for the government? Oh, not enough. Whoever, and it's prosecuting certain
Go ahead, I think all right, go ahead.
Okay, so the Muslim community, the Somali community is already undermined and is already struggling. We have a very high incarceration rate, we have a very high unemployment dropout rate. So some of the stigmas if CVE actually comes, well, it's already started, is because 10 people have been arrested because of what the CVE is preaching. Also, the community is being ridiculed. Now, personally, if you look at, because of what other people know, if they look at our community, they see a community that has a high incarceration rate. They see a community that is poor. They see a community that really has no potential. Now, if you look at and then if you add on to it a community that spits out terrorists, how are we going to get jobs? How are we going to grow? How are we going to get government funding? We're not. So basically what this group is a group that is trying to undermine us and make us less of what we are already about. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. As I think I'm the only Imam at this point who is here to be part of this discussion tonight, a couple of facts that I want to share with you. The survey showed that in America, 96% of violence in America committed by non-Muslims. 4% committed by others, which Muslims are part of it. So is it fair? I want to hear like yes or no to make pilot project for minority number instead of addressing 96% problem that FBI and others reported that is the source of the violence in America. So is it fair to have this funding for minority, a small minority from that 4% instead of addressing 96% of the problem as a source of the problem? Is that fair? No. That is what's about CVA. That's number one. Number two, 50%, about 85 mosques in Minnesota, as an imam witnessed, they rejected this CVA program when they found this is disrupting the services of the Islamic centers and mosques. And I can tell you, a couple of young people that I haven't seen in the mosque a long time, and now they ended up not only in the streets, they ended up right now in groups that may commit violence. When I found them, I asked them why I did not see you in the mosques anymore. They say mosques are under surveillance because of the CVE program.
Then why, since this whole program started, there's about maybe 19 plus kids being prosecuted over there? Yes. If you're on the same page, why don't you go back and read the history page and really dig deeper into what CVE? You know, every couple of decades under various...
I'm not defending the CVE.
And I'm not saying you are. The way you're coming off, you sound like you are. Understand this.
Take it back.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
We don't work for CVE. Don't destroy our name. We don't work for CVE. We work for our kids. If you like it or not, we will go and say that we need our kids. That's what we do.
I appreciate you. If you do work with the kids, we gather here every Thursday, all the groups.
If we really and sincerely work for our kids, let these kids lead us and vote against CVE now. Let's do that. And it's not a good for our community.
caruurteena had iyo habeen waxay u taagan yihiin goframatiga sida ay ku kala geyn lahaayeen kii ka cararo oo diinta ka cararana waxay samaynayaan ama jeelay gelinayaan ama baraadka dhinaciisa u gelinayaan.
This is testimonial, so she said that as this program is introduced, our kids are very confused, don't have no direction at all. So she's warning about the results and the consequences that this program will have in the long-term future of our community.
intaas oo caruur ah ayaa Minneapolis degan caruurtana Soomaaliya kaliya ma jirto intaas oo caruur oo muslimiin degan Minneapolis maxaa programada caruuraha kale loogu furi waayey maxaa Soomaaliya caruurteeda loogu furo
The mother is emphasizing that there's a lot of Muslims and youth that are leaving our state to ask to marry. Why this program is specifically only targeted to Muslim and Somali American community. I want to go back to what the Imam said earlier. Be aware, 96% of terrorists related to this country are committed by white supremacist groups. So only we're talking about is 4% that's committed, including the Muslims.
caruurteena lacag lagu kala geeya ma rabno inta halkaan fadhidana caawa raali kama tihin CVE program raali ma ka tihin kama tihin inaan ka soo horjeedsano dowladda anaga cidna nagama xigto nimankaasi dowladda cidna nagama xigto maraykanka 24 sano maraykanka dhex fadhiyaa Minnesota weliga yaalaha iyo dhibaatada distaan ku dhacdayna nolosheedu dama dhicin marka nin ninkiisu hugo oo raba inuu free lacag ku qaato neefaxiisa lacag kaadadee
And the fact that we live in this country, especially Minnesota, the past 24 years, and she's asking us by her voice that the community is rejecting this pilot program. It's called Counter Pilot Program. She asked you rhetorically, are you with me who will refuse this program?
dadka programka laga CVE-ga oo halkan caawa fadhiyo ayaa waxaan rabaa inaan 3 su'aalood weydiiyo
I would like to ask 3 questions to the panelists who are supporting the CVE.
Su'aasha ugu horeysa waxay ku socotaa Jibriil.
The first question is going to the gentleman.
Jibriil waxaan rabaa inaan su'aasha aan weydiinayo CVE programka aad caruurta u haysiin oo caruurta draaga iyo dhibaatada haysato oo waxbarasho ka haysato oo dhibaato kasta ku haysata caruurteeda Soomaaliyeed oo meesha lagu ceegsanayo ayaa waxaa rabaa inaan su'aashaas weydiiyo CVE-ga programka waxaa ku jira
The question is going to is related.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay.
The question is that in this CPO program, are you aware of the community has a lot of problems, including disparity between about schools, about gangs, drugs, and lack of jobs, all other problems. What is CVE? What is it going to do in our community?
Mike's here. Mike's here.
su-aashu waxay ahayd CVE-ga waxaan u qaban karo. Was that the question?
Su'aasheeda waxa waaye Jibriil aan ku weydiiyey 24 sano Minnesota deganahay dhibaato caruur ayaa 24 ka socoto dalaal qaar lagu abiyuusay oo jeelasha ka buuxo cid ka qeexay caruuro dagaalada lagu diro oo qofka hadalkiisa jirin dhibaatooyinka caruuro inta hadda ilaa 10 caruur lagu xiray wax lagu xiray liiga lagu xiray jirin iskuulada ilmaha ay dhibaato aad ay ka haysato waad ogtihiin maxaa programka intuu hadda uu socday oo aad qabatay oo hadda dadka aad tusin kartid
Well, marka ugu horeysa Soomaaliya then I was speaking marka ugu horeysa walaashay oo hooyo Soomaaliyeed dibka haya qof walba soo
Jibriil su'aasha ka jawaab
marka walaashay caruur baa ka xiran dhibkeedana waa u duceynaynaa qol
aniga caruurteeda xaqaaga ka baahan su'aasha aan ku weydiiyey ka jawaab because aad meesha soo inta CVE-ga البروجرام كأنه تجمع عروض خصوصا مثلا حتى كانوا شيء سؤال كذا عروض اللي هي ما يقدر
حبيبي سألتي كتير قلت مرة أنا CVE EBC هذا الأمانة قضية مرة مشقة والله العظيم جلس أجنبي أداين هذه وقبلها 2014 كي رمضان 2014 يوتيوب ماله بوشتا لين جاجوسا بيان مشقة منك حري وحلي له سيريسلي الرش سمير كراميل أنواع Somali community cid kale ma laha waana la soo yeelaa arrinta CVE-ga anuu hortay bay socotay wayna socotaa waa arrin dowladda wadato hadaaya waxaan idhi anuu sababta aan guddigan la yidhaah Somali American Task Force aan kaga mid noqdo waxay ahayd ma aha inaan CVE taageersanahay ma aha waanan dareemayaa runtii su-aasha meesha u socoto maxaad u qabateen CVE anuu CVE ahaan barnaamijkaasi wuxuu qabanayay dowladday ka timid laakiin anuu xaqa isaaran ka waalid ahaan ka Soomaali ahaan ka muwaadin Soomaaliyeed magaalada degan haddaa aad ii sheegay choice baa jiray marka la ii yeero iska fadhiistaa oo ma yidhaahaa I got nothing to do with it mise waxaan dhahaa as a citizen Somali citizen min muwaadina ayaan wixii dhiba oo ummaddeena kusoo hagaagi kara ama kusoo socda wax ka qaban karaa barnaamijka annaga aan u fadhinay oo markii dambe la yidhi community resilience program baa waxaa la yidhi organizationada corporates for example anoo kale waxaan u shaqeeyaa organization la dhaho IBM marka corporationada magaalada degan oo ahaa Mall of America 3M baa la yidhi waa loo tegayaa Somali community baa funding youth initiative baa la gelinayaa and then attracted arrintaas ayaa aniga meesha soo gelisay iyo anoo rabo inaan miiskii u fadhiisto magac Soomaali ahaan oo haddii CVE ama EBE wixii dib Soomaalida ummaddeena ku iman kara aan adduunkiisa u noqdo aan laga dacwoodo qofka wax uu istusin karaya marka it doesn't mean haddaan anu maanta miiskaan fadhiyo inaan ahay terrorist it doesn't mean miiskaan haddaan fadhiyo inaan ahay radicalized ama nin kasoo horjeeda ama jecel the answer is anu CVE ما هو حبله ما له عطية counter violence extremism وواحد دولة أولته أنا ميز كتر وحنا فديا الصوماليات وكذي أما كذا القضية مرة الصوماليات هاي تأثير اليوت هذا هاي مرة بيقولوا جيجا إن الحراء مرة وانا كذا قانا يعملوا كلا الصوماليات